Well, are you ready for the exciting conclusion? What happens if you add hornwort and other floating plants, and previously you had green hair algae? Well, welcome back to the small scape. Yes, this is kind of like a part 2 to the part 1 that I had last week, 7 days ago. I will link that if you haven't seen it yet. If you have green hair algae, or for that matter, a lot of other different kinds of algae, and you want to know what to do about it, it's actually very simple. There are just a few things that you can do. And this is kind of an update. What does my tank look like after we took care of it last week? Well, a few things that we did. I have the lights on for a couple hours less every single day, so lower lights. And also I added some competition in the way of floating plants. My favorite plant to use is hornwort for this, and then also other floating plants like Salvinia minima. Also, I've been keeping really close tabs on the flow. Sometimes this little sponge comes off or scoots down there to where there's very little flow. That's not good when you have algae, because that just gives algae a little bit easier time to grow. But let's take a look at what it looks like. So now, as you can see, there is just a little bit of green hair algae forming, and this is kind of like a every other day sort of process. Just go in and pull it off, and it should hopefully reduce in time. Also, if there's other plants that are specifically affected, you can remove them and clean them and put them back, or just remove them, period. I actually like this big blob of hornwort floating at the top of the tank. I don't know about you, but for some reason I don't mind it a bit. I really don't. But then again, we have hornwort and floating plants in a lot of our tanks, so I think I'm just accustomed to that look. But what I'm going to do is remove the buse that is kind of floating, because I never did attach it. I just kind of wedged it to see if I would like it. And then this one crypt has decided to float. So I'm going to remove all of that, rinse it off under the sink, and then put it back in. Otherwise, I think it looks great. I have not done my weekly water change yet, so that will help, especially with a lot of the stuff on the bottom. And if you've noticed, there's some new inhabitants. I do have some cherry shrimp in here. Super fun. I don't know why I didn't put them in there in the first place, kind of going along with the red theme. And they should kind of help to keep things a little bit tidy. We've never had them do a whole lot as to keep green hair algae specifically at bay, but they are a good little cleanup crew regardless, and just super fun to watch, especially with these this tiny little scale of these super small fish. And keep in mind, if you are trying to compete with algae, don't be too attached to your aquascape that you have going, because you'll probably be kind of pulling algae off and maybe even cleaning some plants here and there, or even cutting leaves, depending on how bad it is. But you know what, this tank looks really great after only 1 week. I have had tanks that have green hair algae really bad. I did the exact same thing as I did last week, and the next week it looked pretty much exactly the same. The algae just completely came back and overtook the tank. So it took 2-3 weeks or so doing the exact same thing, and then eventually it got under control. But I really think that turning the lights down for at least a couple hours less a day work really great. And when you have low light plants like I do, that's another great thing about low tech tanks. But a lot of fun. I'm so glad that I added the little cherry shrimp. This wraps up my 2-part series on combating green hair algae, even in a nano tank. Hopefully you found it helpful, and let us know if you have any tips in the comments below. And I hope you have a great day.